Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today, we're diving deep into the captivating world of Paulo Coelho.
Coelho,
Yeah.
the Brazilian author, yeah. His books have reached so many people.
Millions, all around the globe. It's quite incredible.
And his life story, it's almost as compelling as his fiction, isn't it?
Absolutely. Think about it, a young guy from Rio, dreams of writing.
But faces some serious hurdles, like being put in a mental institution.
Right, and then embracing the whole hippie trail, traveling everywhere,
Surviving political torture, which is just, wow.
and then emerges as one of the planet's most widely read authors. It's quite a journey.
Truly remarkable.
So today, our aim is to, explore those key moments that shaped him
Look at the influences, yeah?
and delve into the big ideas in his books, the themes that keep popping up.
And maybe unpack that philosophy underneath it all, the thing that seems to connect with so many readers.
Exactly. Trying to understand the person behind this literary phenomenon and why his stories have such staying power.
Okay, so where does it all start? Rio de Janeiro, right. August 24, 1947.
Yeah, born into a pretty strict Catholic family.
And they had expectations, didn't they? Like engineer, lawyer, the usual traditional paths.
Definitely not writer. That early dream he had. His family thought it was, unrealistic, impractical.
I can imagine. And his teenage years, sounds like he was a bit introverted.
Introverted, yeah, and rebellious. Challenging things, which naturally caused some friction with his parents.
And that led to the institutionalization at 17.
It did. His parents committed him. He even underwent electroconvulsive therapy.
Gosh. For what they saw as nonconformity, basically.
Pretty much. He actually escaped 3 times before he was finally released at 20.
That's resilience right there.
But later he reflected on it, didn't he? Said his parents acted out of concern, maybe misguided concern, but not malice.
That takes some perspective to reach that understanding. Wow.
So after his release, he tried law school for a bit to please them,
Yeah, briefly enrolled, but it didn't stick. He dropped out.
and then fully embraced the hippie lifestyle. This is the 60s and 70s now.
Right. Lots of travel, South America, Mexico, North Africa, Europe. Just soaking in the counterculture.
And exploring different things too, right? Not just travel.
Oh, yeah. It was a period of searching. He dabbled in drugs, explored the occult, looking for meaning, I suppose.
He did loads of different things, journalism, acting.
Didn't he start a magazine called 2001?
He did. And music was huge for him then too, writing lyrics for Brazilian rock stars like Raul Seixas.
And those lyrics often had a political edge, didn't they? Against the military dictatorship.
Very much so. Which didn't go unnoticed.
No, that led to his arrest and torture in 1974 because the government saw the lyrics as subversive.
A really dark period. But then things started to shift in the 80s.
Yeah, even though he'd found success as a songwriter, a music exec, something was missing. He felt unfulfilled.
Until the pilgrimage. That seems like the real turning point.
Definitely. 1986, he walks the road of Santiago de Compostela in Spain. 500 miles. He was 39.
And that journey triggered something profound.
He described it as a spiritual awakening. A sudden, clear realization that his true path, his dream, was writing.
It reignited that early passion.
Completely. And that experience directly fueled his first major book, The Pilgrimage.
Published in 87. An autobiographical account of that journey.
It didn't make huge waves initially, but it was the start. It marked his commitment.
He said something like, "I was happy, but not fulfilling my dream. My dream was to be a writer."
Powerful stuff. And then almost immediately after came the big one.
The Alchemist. Written incredibly fast, wasn't it?
Just 2 weeks in 1987. Inspired by the pilgrimage, a Borges story, Sufi ideas.
The story of Santiago, the shepherd boy, looking for treasure, following his dream.
Coelho felt it was already written in my soul. Like he was just channeling it.
But even that wasn't an instant hit, right?
No, not at all. The first small Brazilian press sold maybe 900 copies. They wouldn't even reprint it.
Wow. So how did it eventually break through?
His next book, Brida, did better and got him noticed by a larger publisher.
And then HarperCollins picked up The Alchemist for the English market in 94.
That was the key. It just exploded. Over 35 million copies sold eventually.
Became the most translated book by a living author. Just phenomenal.
A true global phenomenon.
And since then, he's been incredibly prolific. Over 30 books.
Novels, memoirs, essays, always blending that spirituality, philosophy, and sense of adventure.
So let's touch on a few key works.
Yeah.
The Alchemist, obviously central. That idea of the personal legend.
Your unique purpose, yeah. And that famous quote, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.
It's inspired so many people, even famous figures, and the language is often described as simple, poetic,
Very clear, almost fable-like, which actually makes it quite good for English learners, too.
Good point. Then The Pilgrimage, the 87 book, more raw, more autobiographical about his own quest.
Exactly. Less allegory, more direct experience of faith and self-discovery on the road.
What about By the River, Piedra sat down and wept? That came out in 94.
Ah, yes. A story about Pilar and a childhood friend who's become a spiritual leader, set in the French Pyrenees.
It explores love, faith, change. Known for being quite emotionally deep.
Very much so. And then Veronica decides to die in 98.
Inspired by his own institutionalization experience you mentioned.
Right. It follows Veronica finding the beauty in life while in a psychiatric hospital after a suicide attempt. Tackles mental health, freedom.
Important themes. And The Manual of the Warrior of Light, 97.
That's more a collection of short, inspirational bits. Like a guide, life is a battle for your dreams, finding strength and hope.
Almost like daily affirmations or reflections.
Sort of, yeah. And Maktub from 94, It Is Written in Arabic, another collection.
Yeah, parables, short stories, often drawn from his newspaper columns back then. Lessons on destiny, love, resilience.
Looking across all these, you really see those recurring threads, don't you?
Definitely. Following your dreams, that personal legend idea is huge.
Spirituality, but kind of an eclectic mix not tied to one specific dogma.
Journeys of self-discovery, both literal and metaphorical.
And the power of love, connection, it's all woven through.
So the core philosophy seems to be about trusting. Trusting the universe, trusting your path.
Trusting your path, pursuing your dreams, embracing the unknown, that's the heart of it.
The personal legend being key, everyone has this unique purpose.
And your main obligation, according to Coelho, is to chase it, despite fear, despite uncertainty.
Believing the universe actually helps you when you commit.
That quote from The Alchemist again. To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. Pretty direct.
And the spirituality aspect, it's broad, isn't it? Draws from different places.
Yeah, his Catholic roots are there, but also Sufism, mysticism. It feels more universal, more personal, which likely adds to its wide appeal. It's not exclusive.
It's accessible, and there's also a strong emphasis on the present moment.
Absolutely. Living now, making courageous choices, staying open to life's mysteries. You see that a lot in the Manual of the Warrior of Light.
It's quite an optimistic outlook, generally.
It is, yeah, despite the hardships he faced personally.
Speaking of his life, there's some really intriguing, maybe less known details too.
Like the white feather ritual.
Exactly. Needing to find a white feather in January of an odd year before starting a new book, since The Alchemist.
That's quite specific. And his earlier involvement with the occult. Even Satanism.
Yeah, during his younger searching years, he distanced himself later after the spiritual awakening.
It's part of that complex journey. What about sharing his books online?
Oh, right. He used to put them on torrent sites for free, believing it actually boosted print sales.
Bit controversial, I bet. Publisher probably wasn't thrilled.
They eventually stopped him, but apparently he still sometimes allows new books online for a month or so after release. Quite forward-thinking in a way.
And the planned book with Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, a children's book they were working on in 2016. Sadly, after Kobe's death in 2020, Coelho deleted the draft, said it lost its reason for being.
Understandable. And The Alchemist holds a Guinness World Record.
Most translated book by a living author, 80 languages. Incredible reach.
Wow. Plus his work beyond writing the UN Messenger of Peace role.
And the Paulo Coelho Institute he founded in Brazil, helping children and the elderly using his platform.
There was also that brief exploration of black magic during his hippie phase, influenced some early songs.
Right, something he later viewed as just part of youthful exploration. It's all in that biographical film too, The Pilgrim.
And financially, he's done incredibly well. Estimated net worth around $500 million.
Largely from book sales, yeah. He's also quite early in using the internet, blogging, sharing online.
Like that experimental witch project. Always trying new things.
Shifting to his personal life, his marriage to Christina Oiticica, the artist, since 1980.
Seems like a strong partnership, balancing creativity and privacy. He calls her his life partner, credits her support.
And he's been open about overcoming trauma, hasn't he?
Yeah, the institutionalization, the torture. He talks about how those experiences built resilience.
And informed Veronica decides to die.
And how he eventually forgave his parents. That's huge.
His travels clearly shaped him too. He feels like a real global citizen.
Blending cultures and ideas in his writing. And he's remained an advocate for peace, critical of authoritarianism.
So, thinking about his personality, it seems like a mix, right? Dreamy, idealist, but also disciplined.
Yeah, that contrast between maybe procrastinating for years and then being super prolific, and the feather ritual versus the consistent output.
A quiet rebel is a phrase sometimes used, challenging norms through stories.
Encouraging people to question limits, but apparently quite humble in person, despite the fame.
And he's active on social media, like X, sharing quotes, connecting.
Yeah, still engaging, reaching younger audiences.
He does seem to be a bit polarizing, though. People either love him or find him.
Overly earnest? Too commercial, maybe? Yeah, he gets that criticism.
But his focus seems to remain on writing for himself, writing what feels true to him.
Which is probably why it resonates so deeply with those who connect with it.
And for people learning English, his work really does offer something valuable.
Definitely. That simple, poetic language, especially The Alchemist, clear, vivid, almost like a fable.
Accessible for intermediate learners. And the repetition of words like destiny, omen, treasure helps build vocabulary.
For sure. Plus, the themes are universal dreams, love, self-discovery. They translate across cultures.
Great for discussion, practicing speaking and writing in English.
And all those quotes. So many memorable lines you can use to practice sentence structure or in essays.
Like there is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure. That's a classic Coelho quote.
It is, and reading his work gives you cultural insights too. Brazil, spirituality, global perspectives. It enriches the learning process.
A good tip might be to read The Alchemist with a notebook. Jot down words, maybe summarize chapters.
Yeah, actively engage with it, discuss it. It makes the language learning more meaningful.
Looking at his overall influence, it's undeniable, a literary phenomenon.
Over 320 million books sold, 170 countries. The Alchemist still being adapted. There's a film in development, I think.
He's inspired such a wide range of people. And he uses that influence, right?
As a voice for change. Through his institute, his UN role, advocating for dialogue, questioning materialism, seeking meaning.
Though, as we said, his legacy is viewed differently by some. Praised for impact, criticized for simplicity.
Yeah, the reception in Brazil can be different from elsewhere, but that global appeal is just immense.
Ultimately, Paulo Coelho's life story is this powerful reminder about pursuing dreams, getting through hardship, and embracing growth.
Spiritual growth, personal growth. And his books, even if the language feels simple, touch on really deep parts of being human.
And for English learners specifically, it's a fantastic way to engage with meaningful stories while boosting language skills.
Absolutely. His own journey, rebellious kid to global author, it shows what perseverance and belief can do.
So as you, our listeners, continue your own journeys of learning and discovery, maybe think about your own personal legend.
Coelho's life kind of shows that amazing things can come from unexpected places, if you have the courage to follow your heart.
Well said. If you found this deep exploration into Paulo Coelho's world insightful, please do like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Yeah, we'll have more deep dives into fascinating lives and ideas coming up. Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab.
Great to be here.
Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a truly global phenomenon, Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist.
Absolutely. It's one of those books you see everywhere.
It really is. And it's not just a story, is it? It feels more like a journey that's touched millions. Translated into, over 80 languages?
That's right, and selling, I think, over 65 million copies since it came out back in 1988. It's huge.
So our mission today really is to unpack why. Why does this allegorical tale about Santiago, a young shepherd from Andalusia, still resonate so much? What makes it so insightful?
Well, I think we need to look right at the heart of it, Santiago's quest. He's searching for this treasure near the pyramids in Egypt.
All based on a recurring dream.
Yeah. Exactly, a dream. And this pursuit, it's all about finding what the book calls his personal legend.
His true purpose, essentially.
Yeah, his reason for being here.
And along the way, we should definitely talk about the people he meets. They seem crucial.
Oh, definitely. The lessons he learns from them. You know, the gypsy fortune teller, this mysterious king figure.
The crystal merchant, that's a key one.
A very important one, yes. And of course, the alchemist himself. Each encounter teaches him something vital.
We should also probably touch on the structure. It feels very much like that classic hero's journey.
It maps onto it quite neatly, doesn't it? You see him starting in the familiar fields of Spain.
Then through the hustle of Tangiers markets.
And finally across those vast Egyptian deserts. It's a physical journey, sure, but it's deeply spiritual too.
And it's interesting how the plot itself is quite straightforward, almost simple on the surface.
It is, but that simplicity, I think, is what actually helps the deeper philosophical ideas land so well.
It makes it accessible, but still profound.
Precisely. The writing style itself helps there too. It's very conversational, quite inspirational, sometimes almost poetic even.
It pulls you in.
It does. It creates this strong connection. And the approach is intentionally direct, short sentences, clear words, nothing overly complicated.
It avoids getting bogged down in complex language.
Right. And that simplicity lets these big ideas shine through really clearly.
Okay, so let's dig into one of those big ideas. There's that famous line about the universe helping you out. Can you expand on that a bit?
Sure. It comes when Santiago is thinking about his path, and it says, when you desire something deeply, the entire universe collaborates in helping you to achieve it.
That's the one. It's very memorable.
It is. It's concise, easy to remember, sounds simple, but it carries this really powerful concept.
It hints at something bigger, a kind of spiritual undercurrent.
Definitely. You can feel the author's interest in mysticism, in this idea of universal wisdom. The whole story often reads like a fable,
Like it's gently guiding you.
Yeah, offering subtle lessons, prompting you to think about your own life.
It feels a bit like those old oral storytelling traditions, passing down wisdom.
You mentioned repetition earlier, too, how that plays a role.
Ah, yes. Repetition is used quite deliberately. It really helps to reinforce the key ideas.
Like personal legend and soul of the world. Exactly those. They appear again and again, so you become really familiar with these core concepts. It drills them in, almost.
And does the tone stay consistent?
Mostly, yes. It's generally optimistic, reassuring. Even when there are moments of tension, like, say, when Santiago faces danger in the desert, the overall feeling is still positive.
Suggesting challenges are just part of the journey.
Right. It reinforces those central messages about perseverance and destiny.
So the way it's put together, the narrative structure, that's also important.
Absolutely key. The Alchemist follows a very linear path. You just follow Santiago's journey from start to finish.
No complex flashbacks or jumps in time.
Nope, very straightforward, which makes it easy to follow along. It's broken into 2 main parts, plus an epilogue, and the chapters are quite short.
Focusing on specific events or lessons.
That's it. Each chapter feels a bit like its own little episode, but they all build together into this unified whole.
That probably makes the whole quest feel less daunting for the reader, too.
I think so. And something else that helps is the narrative perspective. It uses a third-person omniscient narrator.
Meaning we get inside Santiago's head, but also see other characters' viewpoints.
Exactly. We understand Santiago's thoughts and feelings, but the narrator can also dip into, say, the crystal merchant's mind.
Ah, so we understand why he acts the way he does.
Right. The narrator often explains their feelings or choices. Like with the crystal merchant, we understand his fear of change, why he hesitates to follow his own dreams.
It gives you that broader understanding, not just Santiago's world.
Precisely. You see the internal struggles of others too.
And you mentioned magical elements earlier, things that aren't strictly realistic.
Yes, magical realism. The structure weaves these in quite seamlessly. You have realistic settings like the markets or the desert, but then you have mystical things happening.
Like Santiago talking to the wind and the sun.
Exactly like that. These fantastical moments add a sense of wonder, of excitement.
And the omens, the signs he follows.
They're a structural tool too. They guide Santiago, obviously, but they also build anticipation for the reader and reinforce that idea of the universe being interconnected, sending signals.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the core themes. What are the really big ideas the book tackles?
Well, there are several universal themes, which is probably why it connects with so many people. The absolute central one, no doubt, is pursuing your personal legend.
Finding and following your true purpose.
Yes. Santiago learns that chasing his dream takes courage. It involves sacrifice, and it requires trust. It's inspiring, but also relatable. We all have dreams.
And the vocabulary around that destiny, pursue, aspire, it comes up often.
It does. It's good practice for that kind of language. Another major theme is self-discovery.
His outer journey reflects an inner one.
Perfectly put. As he faces trials, he gains wisdom, confidence, a deeper understanding of who he is. This brings in words like reflect, realize, transform.
Personal growth, basically.
Which is universal. And then there's this idea of interconnectedness.
The soul of the world.
That's the term, yes. It suggests everything in the universe is fundamentally linked. It's quite a spiritual theme, maybe new for some readers.
But it makes you think about bigger ideas.
It does. Unity, harmony, fate. You see words like omen, universe, connection used a lot, which stretches your philosophical vocabulary.
It certainly sounds like Santiago faces a lot of challenges, though. It's not an easy path.
Oh, definitely not. Fear and uncertainty are constants for him. But the key is he learns to overcome them.
Which is motivating for the reader too, right? We all face fear.
Exactly. It mirrors our own struggles. And you get lots of vocabulary related to emotions, fear, courage, confidence, which helps you talk about your own feelings.
And love plays a part too, his relationship with Fatima.
A significant part, yes. His connection with Fatima, the woman in the desert oasis, explores that tricky balance between love and following your own individual dream.
So you get romantic, emotional language, heart, devotion, sacrifice.
Right. And it's presented in a way that feels quite relatable, despite the epic setting.
So looking at Santiago himself, we really see him change throughout the story.
We do. He's the protagonist, our main window into the story. His development is gradual, but it's substantial. He's compelling.
How does he start out?
Initially, he's curious, maybe a bit restless, but generally content just being a shepherd. He's somewhat hesitant.
But the quest changes him.
Profoundly. He becomes much more self-assured, more resilient. He opens up to the mysteries of the world.
And the other characters he meets, they're not just plot devices.
Not at all. Characters like Melchizedek, the king, or the crystal merchant, or the alchemist himself, they act as mentors or foils.
Yeah.
Each one pushes Santiago's growth in some way.
So analyzing them helps with understanding character description.
It does. You practice using adjectives calling Melchizedek wise or the crystal merchant cautious. It makes you think about how to describe people effectively.
They kind of push him along his path.
They do. And what's interesting is many of them are almost archetypes, aren't they? The wise old mentor, the dreamer, the skeptic.
Universal roles.
Yeah, which makes them easier to grasp, perhaps. And their conversations give context for learning dialogue, how people interact.
The book is also famous for its symbolism, isn't it? Things representing deeper ideas.
Very much so. Coelho uses symbolism and imagery really effectively to deepen the themes. It adds layers.
So the treasure itself, for instance.
That clearly represents his personal legend, achieving his dream. Then you have the desert.
Symbolizing challenges, the unknown.
Exactly. It tests his resolve. The omens, we mentioned birds. Dreams, they symbolize guidance from the universe, maybe divine guidance.
And the heart. He's told to listen to his heart.
Yes, the heart represents intuition, inner wisdom. It's a recurring message. Trust your feelings.
So these symbols really carry a lot of the meaning.
They do. And the imagery used to describe them is vivid, but usually quite straightforward. The desert as an endless sea of sand. It's a simple metaphor, but it creates a strong picture.
You can visualize it easily.
Right, you can practice picturing these scenes and using descriptive words yourself, vast, golden, mysterious.
It sounds like the book is just packed with these underlying messages. What are some of the key takeaways, the main lessons?
Oh, absolutely. It's full of philosophical, spiritual insights. A fundamental one is simply follow your heart.
Trust your intuition.
Yes. Santiago learns to do that, and it guides him towards his destiny. It encourages us, the readers, to listen to our own instincts, pursue what fulfills us.
That's a powerful message. Seems to connect with a lot of people.
It really does. Another big one is about embracing the unknown. Santiago learns that being scared of the unfamiliar is normal.
But you shouldn't let it stop you.
Right. You have to take risks sometimes. That insight feels very relevant, whenever we step outside our comfort zone.
Recognizing that growth happens in those uncomfortable places.
Correct. And every challenge Santiago faces teaches him something. It's a reminder that difficulties are actually opportunities to grow, to build resilience.
Turning obstacles into lessons.
Precisely. And then there's that famous quote again. When you truly want something, the entire universe conspires in helping you achieve it. It suggests determination, belief. They can actually draw success towards you.
Such an optimistic, motivating idea.
It is. And the book has so many lines like that, really memorable quotes. Think about, there is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure.
Highlighting how fear itself is the real barrier.
Exactly. Santiago's journey shows setbacks happen, they're part of it. Overcoming the fear is crucial.
It reminds you that your own doubts can be the biggest hurdle.
Very true. Or consider this one. The secret of life, though, is to fall 7 times and to get up 8 times.
Resilience. Perseverance.
That's it. The metaphor of falling and rising captures life's challenges and the absolute need to just keep going, not give up.
That idea of persistence, no matter what.
And what about the advice to tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself?
That's interesting. Confront your fears, because worrying about them is often worse than the reality.
Precisely. The anxiety around potential pain can be more crippling than the actual experience. It encourages courage, being present.
That's a really useful way to reframe anxiety.
I think so. And one last one, maybe. No matter what he does, every person on Earth plays a central role in the history of the world. And normally, he doesn't know it.
Suggesting everyone has a purpose and impact, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah. It fosters a sense of self-worth, and again, that feeling of interconnectedness.
It really makes you consider the significance of your own actions, doesn't it? However small they might seem.
It does. And these quotes, because they're short, memorable, full of meaning, they're great for reflection. They really encapsulate the novel's core ideas.
So for anyone exploring themes like purpose, destiny, this book seems like a great starting point.
Oh, absolutely. The Alchemist is fantastic for several reasons. As we said, the writing is simple, clear prose, very accessible.
The vocabulary isn't too intimidating.
No, it's varied, but not overly complex. Shorter sentences help. Descriptions are usually straightforward, using common verbs and adjectives.
And the story itself is engaging. It keeps you turning the pages.
Definitely. The plot is adventurous. There's danger, romance, discovery. It keeps you motivated to see what happens next.
Plus, you get exposure to different cultures.
Right. You get glimpses of Spanish life, North African culture, mystical ideas. It broadens your perspective, introduces new vocabulary related to those areas.
It sounds like it offers a lot for personal reflection, too.
Loads. The themes, the quotes, they give you so much to think about and discuss. You can explore your own personal legend. Talk about the quotes that resonate.
Reflect on Santiago's experiences.
Exactly. And the repetition we talked about, dream, heart, treasure, omen, it really helps those key words stick in your mind. It builds vocabulary for expressing deeper feelings and goals.
So it's a book with layers, offering chances for growth.
Totally. The Alchemist holds this unique place, I think. It blends accessibility with real depth. It draws on old traditions, fables, allegories, spiritual writing.
But feels very modern and universal.
It does. Its success comes from connecting with people from all walks of life, offering wisdom without being preachy or overly difficult.
It bridges different styles effectively.
And from a literary perspective, it's interesting for its use of archetypes, its minimalist style, the concise prose, the focus on universal truths. It echoes other spiritual writers.
It kind of straddles genres. Self-help, but also literary fiction.
You could say that. The focus on spirituality and self-discovery links it to self-help. But the narrative structure, the poetic language, definitely puts it in the literary fiction camp too.
So studying it offers a chance to look at literary devices in an accessible way.
Yes. Things like symbolism, metaphor, allegory, they're all there, but presented clearly. And its huge cultural impact, you see references everywhere, makes it important for understanding contemporary literature too.
It certainly left its mark.
No question. Now, it's worth saying, while it's widely loved, it does have its critics.
Oh, what are the main criticisms?
Some find the tone a bit too simplistic, maybe, or the philosophy a little repetitive. They feel it favors inspiration over real complexity.
Though, as we said, that simplicity can also be a strength for many readers.
Exactly. For others, that's precisely the appeal. Another point is that the spiritual themes might not click with everyone, especially readers who prefer more grounded, realistic stories.
Fair enough. Not every book is for every reader.
True. But despite any criticisms, its lasting popularity and those universal messages make it, I think, a really worthwhile read for most people.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up our journey through The Alchemist.
Well, ultimately, The Alchemist isn't just a novel, is it? It really is an experience, one of inspiration, self-discovery, finding universal wisdom.
The accessible language, the engaging story, the deep themes.
They make it really enriching. It fosters growth, both personal and, in terms of understanding literature and ideas. Through Santiago's quest, readers really do gain insights into courage, love, and why pursuing your dreams matters.
Hopefully, Santiago's journey encourages listeners to think about their own personal legend.
That's the hope.
So we've journeyed through the sands of Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, really digging into Santiago's quest for his personal legend, the wisdom he picks up along the way, and those big universal themes woven throughout.
We saw how that conversational, inspirational tone, the straightforward structure, and those touches of magical realism all combine for a pretty unique read.
Yeah, and the exploration of themes, chasing dreams, finding yourself, the universe being connected, facing fear, the role of love, they offer lessons that really stick with you.
We also highlighted the symbolism, the treasure, the desert, the omens, the heart, and the powerful insights like listening to your heart and stepping into the unknown.
And we looked at some of those really famous quotes like, "When you want something, all the universe conspires." and what they tell us about determination, fear, bouncing back, and our own place in the world.
I think its lasting appeal really comes down to its ability to speak to our own deep desires and the courage it takes to actually go after them.
Definitely. It leaves you thinking about your own path, maybe looking for your own omens.
So the question it leaves you with is, what personal legend resonates with you after diving into this?
And what fears might you need to face to pursue it? Those are the kinds of questions The Alchemist gently pushes us towards.
Indeed.
Well, if this exploration of The Alchemist has got you thinking, or maybe sparked your curiosity to read or reread it, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been great discussing it.
And if you did enjoy it, please do be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more literary deep dives like this one.
Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today we're diving deep into Paulo Coelho's novel, Brida.
Ah, Brida.
It tells the story of a young Irish woman, Brida,
Yeah.
on this really fascinating journey of spiritual discovery. It touches on things like witchcraft, lots of self-exploration, and love, too.
Right. It's quite a read. Published back in 1990, I think, and translated into English, of course. It definitely made waves.
Yeah, it did. And Coelho, well, he has this way, doesn't he?
He really does. He's so skilled at weaving together what seems like simple language with these, well, pretty profound philosophical ideas, a bit like The Alchemist, which so many people know.
Exactly, that alchemist feel.
Yeah, and Brida, it sort of carries that on. It's this story that works as like a personal journey for her, Brida, but also as this bigger search for, universal meaning.
Universal meaning.
That's it. And that makes it quite approachable, I think, even if English isn't your first language. But it's still got, real substance depth.
For sure. So our goal today is really to get under the skin of Brida. We want to look at Coelho's style, the key parts of the story, maybe some famous quotes and what they're about.
And how it can actually help you with your English.
Exactly. How it can be a valuable tool for English learners.
Yeah.
So, where should we start? Maybe Coelho's writing style itself.
Sounds good. Yeah, his style in Brida, people often describe it as lyrical and very introspective, definitely philosophical. There's this gentle, sort of contemplative tone all the way through. It really makes you want to pause and, reflect on your own stuff as you follow Brida's journey.
Right. It feels personal.
It does. It manages to be conversational, almost like he's just sharing thoughts, but it still tackles these quite deep spiritual ideas in a way that doesn't feel heavy,
Yeah, that overwhelming.
Exactly. And for English learners, that's great because you get this straightforward language paired with quite thought-provoking concepts. So you're working on understanding and interpretation.
It's like he's talking directly to you, sharing insights.
That's a good way to put it. In Brida, his sentences are often, well, fairly short. The vocabulary is clear, understandable, and there's a rhythm to it. Almost like
someone telling a story out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Like oral storytelling. And that simplicity doesn't make it shallow. I actually think it makes it more appealing, easier for non-native speakers to follow along.
And does the tone change at all?
Oh, definitely. It subtly shifts as the story goes on, kind of mirroring Brida's own growth, her spiritual development. You see it start with curiosity, maybe a bit of uncertainty.
For a starting point.
Right. And then it moves towards this more confident, more reflective voice as she starts to understand things more deeply. It's quite clever, actually. That change in tone itself is kind of a lesson in how language shows interchange.
So the way he builds sentences, the words he picks, that's part of the learning too.
Absolutely. The overall tone is just inviting, I think, for learners. It generally steers clear of super complex sentences or really obscure words, and all the dialogue, the direct conversations.
Right, between Brida and her mentors.
Yeah, and her inner thoughts, too. Those bits give you a real feel for how English is spoken and thought, all while you're digging into these bigger ideas. The conversations, they're usually pretty clear, purposeful. Often, that's how the life lessons come across.
Makes sense. That clarity helps you grasp the themes without getting lost in the language.
For sure. And there's also this sense of universality in the tone. He uses archetypes, emotions, love, fear, searching for meaning. Things that resonate across cultures,
Yeah, so Brida feels relatable.
Very relatable. People from all sorts of backgrounds can connect with her. And that reflective tone, it encourages you, the reader, to stop and think about what it means, which is fantastic for boosting your critical thinking in English.
It sounds like the emotional side is really central to the experience.
It is, very central. Coelho's tone in Brida often hits you emotionally, creates this feeling of wonder, maybe introspection. He uses metaphors, symbols, like the tradition of the sun and tradition of the moon.
Right, the two paths to wisdom.
Exactly. And for learners, those metaphors are a great chance to look at figurative language, see how it works. Plus, when you connect emotionally, the whole reading experience is just more engaging, more memorable, isn't it?
Definitely. But you mentioned earlier, sometimes it feels a bit like he's directly teaching you something, a little didactic.
Yeah, that's fair. It can lean that way sometimes. Coelho does embed pretty clear life lessons right into the story. Now, some readers might find that a bit, I don't know, preachy.
Maybe a little heavy-handed.
Possibly. But actually, for English learners, it can be quite useful. It makes the main themes really clear and gives context for ideas that might be new. It's kind of his trademark, that balance between story and lesson. In Brida, it creates a tone that's, well, both inspiring and informative.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how he writes. What about the story itself? The structure, the main ideas, what's going on there?
Right, the story. Well, it unfolds pretty linearly. You follow Brida quite clearly from her initial curiosity right through to her self-understanding.
Step by step.
Pretty much. The book's divided into chapters, and each one tends to focus on a key moment, meeting her mentors, having visions of past lives, reflecting on love or fear, that kind of thing. The pacing is deliberate, measured.
Not rushed.
No, definitely not rushed. It gives you time to really absorb the themes and the language in each chapter before you move on, which again is helpful for learners. You get space to process.
So the main focus isn't really action, but her inner journey.
That's it, exactly. It's told in the third person, but it stays really close to Brida's point of view. So you get a good insight into her thoughts, her feelings.
Makes her easy to follow.
Yeah, it makes the why behind her actions pretty clear. And then you also get these moments where characters, usually the mentors, speak directly to Brida, sharing wisdom, but it feels like they're talking to the reader too.
Right. Underscoring that teaching element again.
Gives you clear takeaways.
And what are those main takeaways? The big themes.
Yeah. Well, several stand out. First, definitely self-discovery. At its heart, Brida is about growing up, finding your place. Her whole quest to become a witch is really a metaphor for finding your purpose, embracing what makes you unique.
Okay, self-discovery.
Then there's spirituality and mysticism. Big themes for Coelho. It draws on a mix paganism, witchcraft, even some Christian elements. And those two traditions, sun and moon.
Rational thought versus intuition.
Kind of, yeah. Different ways to wisdom.
Yeah.
Then thirdly, love and soulmates. That's huge in this book.
Ah, the soulmate idea.
Yep. Explored through Brida's relationships, love is shown as this transformative force, but it needs courage, vulnerability.
It requires taking risks.
It does. Fourth theme, overcoming fear. Brida has to face her anxieties, and she gets guidance on trust and resilience. That's something most people can relate to, I think.
Definitely.
And finally, there's this theme of balance. Brida's struggle to fit her spiritual side with her everyday life, her relationship. The book suggests real fulfillment comes from integrating all parts of yourself.
Wow, okay. Sounds like you go through a lot. Who are the main people she interacts with on this journey?
The key characters are quite distinct. You've got Brida, obviously curious, determined, relatable, because her questions feel universal.
Right.
Then there's Magus. He's the wise, kind of enigmatic mentor for the tradition of the sun. His insights are quite philosophical, so that introduces more reflective language.
And Wicca.
Wicca teaches the tradition of the moon. She's more confident, intuitive. Her teachings bring in more symbolic, ritualistic language.
Okay, the two mentors.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
There's Lawrence, her boyfriend. He's a physicist, represents stability, earthly love. He kind of grounds the story, provides a contrast to all the mystical stuff.
Interesting contrast. And where does this all happen? Is the setting important?
It's set in Ireland, and yeah, the descriptions of forests, cities, those mystical spots, they're quite vivid, but the language used is generally pretty straightforward.
Accessible.
Yeah. The forest is really important for Magus's teachings, and the city connects Brida back to her normal life before she dives deep spiritually. The settings definitely add to the atmosphere.
And any specific cultural influences learners might pick up on?
Oh, for sure. It reflects Coelho's own deep interest in spirituality, obviously. He blends Celtic and Wiccan traditions with Christian references sometimes.
So a mix of things.
A real mix. For learners, it's a chance to get a feel for Irish settings, maybe learn a bit about pagan practices, and engage with these big philosophical ideas from a different cultural lens. Broadens your horizons,
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got the style, the story, the themes, the characters. Now, the book is known for some really memorable lines, isn't it? Let's dig into a few of those popular quotes.
Good idea. Quotes are often what stick with people. How about this one? Nothing in the world is ever completely wrong. Even a stopped clock is right twice a day.
Ah, yes, I remember that one. Simple but profound.
It is. It's something Brida's father tells her, kind of comforting her when she's feeling unsure. It suggests there's value, some truth, even in things that seem totally flawed. Very Coelho, that optimism.
And for learners?
Well, the sentence is pretty direct, clear vocabulary. And the stopped clock image. It's figurative language, but it's quite easy to grasp, isn't it?
Yeah, a nice visual. Okay, here's another. But how will I know who my soulmate is? By taking risks, by risking failure, disappointment, disillusion, but never ceasing in your search for love.
That's Wicca Talking to Brida. Really hits that theme of courage and love. Finding your soulmate isn't passive. You have to be vulnerable, keep trying even when it's tough.
You have to put yourself out there.
Exactly. Accept the possibility of things not working out. Linguistically, notice the repetition, the parallel structure by risking. It's effective. And the vocabulary, while emotional, is still quite accessible for learners.
It's quite motivating, actually. Don't give up. Okay, how about this one? When you're in love, you're capable of learning everything and knowing things you had never dared even to think, because love is the key to understanding of all the mysteries.
That's Brida reflecting, isn't it? It positions love as this catalyst for growth, for deeper understanding. Like, emotional connection unlocks insights into life's big questions.
That's quite poetic.
It is. A good example of his more lyrical style, mixing romance and philosophy. The sentence is a bit longer, but the clauses are clear. Good practice for learners looking at more complex structures.
It really highlights love's power. Now, this next one feels very direct. Don't bother trying to explain your emotions. Live everything as intensely as you can and keep whatever you felt as a gift from God.
Right. That's advice given when Brida's struggling to put profound experiences into words. Just feel it, embrace it fully, don't overthink it. Value the feeling itself.
Like a spiritual instruction almost.
Kind of. Notice the imperative verbs don't bother, live, keep. Very clear commands. And as intensely as you can, good example of using adverbs for emphasis.
Just live life fully. Okay, a simpler one. People give flowers as presents because flowers contain the true meaning of love.
Yeah, that comes up in a chat about expressing love. Flowers beautiful, maybe temporary, symbolize love's essence. It's a classic metaphor, really.
Very accessible.
Super accessible vocabulary, but with that deeper metaphorical meaning. Great for learners.
Lovely idea. Now, one about making choices. Choosing a path meant having to miss out on others. She had a whole life to live, and she was always thinking that in the future, she might regret the choices she made now.
The anxiety of choice, that feeling of FOMO, almost fear of missing out. It touches on that sacrifice involved in any decision.
That resonates, I think.
Totally. For learners, look at the introspective tone, the conditional language might regret, and phrases like meant having to, good practice with modals and gerunds.
Definitely relatable. Okay, another one about love, but this time apprehension. I'm afraid of love because it involves things that are beyond our understanding. It sheds such a brilliant light, but the shadow it casts frightens me.
Ooh, yeah. Brida's fear of love's intensity. The light and shadow metaphor is really strong here, isn't it? Shows how love can be amazing, but also scary.
That duality.
Exactly. Great for learners to explore figurative language and emotional vocabulary.
Captures the complexity well. How about recognizing a soulmate? You can tell your soulmate by the light in their eyes, and since the time began, that has been how people have recognized their true love.
That's very intuitive, almost mystical. The light in their eyes, that's a pretty common English idiom, right?
Right, you hear that a lot.
So, useful for learners, and since the time began, that has been good example of the past perfect tense in action.
A very romantic notion.
Oh.
Okay, nearing the end of the quotes, sometimes the best of God's gifts arrive by the shattering of all the window panes.
Wow, yeah. That suggests good things, blessings, can come from disruption, from difficult times. The image-shattering window panes, it's so vivid.
Really striking metaphor.
It is. Encourages learners to think beyond the literal meaning.
Good things from chaos. And lastly, one that feels familiar. Do not try to explain feelings. Live everything intensely and treasure what you feel as a gift from God.
Yeah, it echoes that earlier advice, doesn't it? Reinforces the idea. Embrace emotions fully, see them as valuable, maybe divine.
Repetition for emphasis.
Exactly. Same imperative tone, same gift metaphor. Really drills the point home.
These quotes really do capture the essence of the book, don't they? The themes, the style. So Pulling all this together, how exactly does Brida work as a learning tool for someone studying English?
Well, linguistically, it hits a sweet spot, especially for, say, intermediate to advanced learners, maybe B1 to C1 level. The vocabulary is generally accessible, but it ranges nicely from everyday stuff to more spiritual or mystical terms.
So a good range.
Yeah. And the sentence structures vary to simple, clear sentences alongside some moderately complex ones. Good exposure. The dialogue is brilliant for getting a feel for conversational English.
Right, how people actually talk.
Exactly, and those reflective bits expose you to more philosophical language. Plus, all the metaphors we talked about, great for understanding figurative speech.
So it's not just about reading a story, it's about actively engaging with different parts of the language in context.
That's the key. And beyond the language itself, the themes are so universal: love, fear, finding yourself, people connect with that, which is hugely motivating when you're learning.
Keeps you reading.
It does. And the cultural blend, Irish, Celtic, Christian elements can spark interesting discussions, broaden your understanding. Plus, the philosophical side encourages critical thinking, interpreting the messages, relating them to your own life.
Okay, so lots of benefits. What are some practical ways learners could use the book, like specific strategies?
Oh, definitely. Active reading is always good. Highlight new words, jot down notes about themes or characters as you go. Helps things stick.
Annotating.
Yeah. Discussing it with others is fantastic. Join a book club, talk to a language partner, you practice speaking, listening, hear different viewpoints.
Good for conversation practice.
For sure. Maybe try writing responses, like journal about the themes, or even write a short story inspired by it. And listening to the audiobook, if there is one, is great for pronunciation and comprehension.
Listening practice, yeah.
And maybe check out other Coelho books, too, to see his style across different stories.
Good tips. Are there any potential hurdles or challenges learners might face with Brida?
Well, some might find the mystical stuff or the philosophical tone a bit challenging at first, especially if they're not used to it, or the figurative language.
What can they do?
Break it down, tackle complex bits in smaller chunks, maybe try summarizing them in your own words. Doing a tiny bit of background reading on, say, Wicca or Celtic ideas might help with context.
Don't be afraid to look things up.
Exactly. Ask a teacher, ask a native speaker friend if something's really confusing. But honestly, the main thing is to try and enjoy the story. Don't make it just a language exercise.
Right. Enjoy the journey and the learning follows. That makes sense. What about how the book was received? Critics versus readers. Sometimes that's interesting.
It is. Brida got a bit of a mixed reaction, actually. Many readers love it, especially fans of Coelho's style. They praise the lyrical writing, the spiritual themes, Brida's relatability, often comparing it positively to The Alchemist.
They connect with the self-discovery aspect.
Deeply. Love and self-discovery really resonate. But some critics weren't as impressed. They found it maybe slower paced than his other works, perhaps a bit too instructional, too didactic, like we discussed.
And a magic.
Some found the portrayal of magic and soulmates a little simplistic, maybe, suggesting the philosophical ideas took priority over a really complex plot.
So maybe it appeals more to readers who like that thoughtful, character-focused style.
I think so. Definitely more than someone looking for nonstop action. But importantly, from an English learner's perspective, it often gets recommended.
Why is that?
Learners often describe it as magical, fun, easy to read. They appreciate the clear prose, the engaging themes. That emotional, philosophical core can be really motivating. Sure, there might be a few unfamiliar cultural bits, but usually those are easy enough to figure out with a little help.
So overall, still a good choice for learners.
Yeah, I'd say overall, despite what some critics might say, it's a really valuable resource. Clear language, universal themes, lots of chances for language practice and cultural learning. Pretty versatile.
It really sounds like Brida offers this unique blend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Storytelling, spirituality, and language learning potential all wrapped up together.
It really does. It's a distinctive journey into self-discovery and spirituality, told in that accessible Coelho style. For you, learning English, it's more than just a story. It's a chance to expand vocabulary, understand different styles, engage with big ideas.
And those themes, finding your path, understanding love, facing fear, they're things everyone grapples with, aren't they?
Absolutely. They offer real points for reflection, no matter where you're from. And those quotes we looked at, they're great starting points for thinking more deeply, maybe discussing things in English.
So what's the final thought we want to leave people with today?
Well, we'd really encourage you to maybe explore Brida for yourself. See what resonates with you in her quest. Are there other ways to interpret the symbols, the metaphors? This deep dive today, it's really just a starting point for your own exploration.
Absolutely. And if you found this exploration of Brida insightful, maybe helpful for your English learning journey, please do like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel. We'll have more literary deep dives and language learning content coming your way. Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab.
Great to be here.
Today we're taking a deep dive into Paulo Coelho's 11 Minutes. Quite a powerful book.
Definitely. It gives this really profound look at, well, love, sexuality, self-discovery, the search for meaning, really.
Yeah, all through the eyes of this young Brazilian woman, Maria.
Right, who ends up becoming a prostitute in Switzerland. It sounds stark, but the story is much more nuanced.
Absolutely. So our mission today is kind of unpack the core of this novel, right? Explore its big ideas, Coelho's unique writing style.
And try to understand why it's resonated with so many people globally.
Exactly. We'll navigate the themes, offer some insights, and hopefully help you grasp its literary significance.
Sounds good. It really centers on Maria, as you said. She's dreaming of a better life than her small town offers. And that dream takes her to Geneva. But her hopes for, fame and fortune, they don't quite pan out as expected.
Now, they lead her down a very different path into prostitution.
Yeah, and the story really tracks her emotional and I'd say spiritual growth as she deals with that. Her profession, her relationships, her own inner desires. It's all in there.
Okay, let's talk about that plot a bit more. The title itself, 11 Minutes, it's pretty striking.
It is. It apparently refers to the average length of a sexual encounter.
Right, and Coelho uses that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
To highlight this contrast.
Exactly. Between just, physical intimacy and something deeper, that emotional connection.
And the book isn't just about what happens to her externally. We get this incredibly intimate look inside her head.
They're her diary entries, yeah. Plus his own sort of philosophical reflections woven in.
It really digs into the nuances of human relationships that search for happiness.
And that 11 minutes idea, it's more than just literal, isn't it? It feels like a commentary.
Yeah, like how society can sometimes reduce these potentially profound things to just transactions, fleeting moments.
Makes you think about settling for the superficial when maybe you crave something more.
For sure. So, thinking about the bigger picture, what are some of the key themes you see running through it?
Well, the first one that jumps out is definitely that love versus lust dynamic.
Right.
The book really digs into the differences, but also the overlaps, between physical desire and real emotional intimacy in Maria's world.
It feels like Coelho uses her experiences to kind of dismantle that simple idea that they're totally separate things.
Absolutely. He seems to suggest that desire, if you actually acknowledge it and understand it, instead of just suppressing it, it can actually be a path towards greater self-awareness, maybe even lead to a more authentic connection. It challenges the conventional views, for sure.
Definitely. And it's not just about her relationships with others, is it? A huge part is her own internal journey.
Oh, totally. It's very much a story of self-discovery. She's gradually figuring out her own desires, her fears, what she actually wants out of life.
And tied into that is how the novel looks at sexuality and society.
Yes, it really pushes back against some standard views on prostitution, digs into the complexities of sexual relationships in general.
And Coelho doesn't really hold back on those topics.
No, he doesn't. But what's interesting is how it emphasizes Marie's agency, her ability to make choices even within her, difficult circumstances.
Right. She's never just portrayed as a passive victim.
Exactly. And sticking with Coelho's typical style, there's a strong spiritual thread running through it all.
Those big philosophical questions pop up.
Yeah, about life's purpose, the nature of love. It kind of nudges you, the reader, to question things alongside Maria, question norms, your own beliefs.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about how he tells the story. His writing style, it's quite distinctive, isn't it?
Oh, very. People often call it lyrical, introspective, philosophical even.
It feels very personal, almost like he's talking directly to you sometimes.
Yeah, it draws you right into Maria's inner world. And he uses a lot of metaphors, allegories.
It's like comparing her heart to a bird in flight. I remember that one.
Exactly. It's such an evocative image. It captures that longing for freedom, maybe her restlessness, her vulnerability too. And even though he's dealing with potentially controversial stuff, his tone feels very empathetic. He doesn't seem to be judging Maria.
That's a good point. And when he does talk about sexuality, it's quite direct, quite honest.
Yeah, which adds to that intimate feel, I think.
So how does the story actually unfold? What's the structure like? It's not just linear, right?
No, it's clever. You've got this third-person narrator who tells us what Maria is doing, her external life.
Okay.
But then, mixed in, you have her first-person diary entries.
Ah, right. So you get both sides.
Exactly. You get direct access to her inner thoughts, her feelings. It creates this really layered understanding of her journey.
So we see what's happening, but we also feel what's happening inside her. And you mentioned flashbacks too, to her past.
Yeah, those are crucial for understanding her character. They give context, show us the experiences that shaped her before she even got to Switzerland.
Okay, so let's dive into Maria herself then. What's her journey like, character-wise?
Well, she starts out quite naive, maybe. A dreamer, definitely. But also a bit disillusioned by her first experiences with love back home.
Right, she had this yearning for something more.
But then she gets to Geneva, full of hope, and reality hits hard.
So how does she change? How does she adapt?
She becomes much more pragmatic, definitely more resilient. She has to, right, to navigate her situation.
Sure.
But underneath, those diary entries show she's grappling with loneliness, maybe some shame, but also this growing self-awareness. She starts really questioning herself, her feelings.
And where does that lead her by the end? What's the transformation?
By the end, she seems to have gained a real sense of confidence, clarity about what she actually wants. She starts making choices that align more with her own values. It feels like a genuine emotional and spiritual shift.
And there's another key figure, isn't there? Ralph, the artist.
Ah, yes, Ralph. He's important.
What role does he play?
Well, he sort of represents a different kind of love for Maria, something that goes beyond just the physical.
Yeah.
His relationship with her challenges her ideas about love, about connection. It pushes her to be more vulnerable, confront some of her fears.
Let's maybe touch on some key moments in the book.
Yeah.
Like Maria's arrival in Geneva. Full of hope, then facing exploitation.
Yeah.
Why is that significant?
Well, that initial shock, that contrast between the dream and the reality, it sets the stage, right? It immediately shows us her resilience, her ability to keep going, and it brings up that theme of choice right away. Even in a bad situation, she's making decisions.
And her first diary entry. Why is that a key moment?
That's where we first really hear her voice, that introspective, thoughtful way she sees things. It sets the philosophical tone for the whole book, really. Signals we're going deeper.
And the meeting with Ralph, you called it the emotional core. Why?
Because that relationship is where the book really explores that love versus lust idea most directly. It's a turning point for her. Through him, she starts to see the possibility of a different kind of intimacy, which pushes her further down that path of self-discovery.
And we have to talk about the title concept again, 11 minutes. How does the book use that idea?
It works as this constant reminder, doesn't it, of how superficial, purely physical encounters can be.
Yeah.
It forces Maria and us to think about the depth or the lack of it in relationships based only on that. It keeps pushing that theme of emotional connection versus just the physical act.
The settings are interesting too. Brazil versus Switzerland. What do they represent?
Good question. Brazil seems to stand for tradition, maybe limited options, where her initial views are formed.
Okay.
Geneva is modernity, opportunity, but also alienation, moral ambiguity, as she discovers. That contrast really adds another layer.
And the book tackles the social side of prostitution pretty directly.
Yeah.
How does it handle that?
I think the key thing is Coelho's empathy. He avoids easy judgments. He focuses on Maria's agency, her humanity. It really challenges stereotypes about sex work, asks for a more nuanced view.
There's some really powerful quotes highlighted in the outline. Let's look at a couple. How about, everything tells me that I'm about to make a wrong decision, but making mistakes is just part of life. What does the world want of me? Does it want me to take no risks? Because I didn't have the courage to say yes to life.
Wow, yeah. That really captures her internal conflict, doesn't it? It hits on courage, accepting mistakes as part of learning.
And that core choice between playing it safe and, well, living fully.
Those questions at the end really make you think about your own risks.
Rapidly. Okay, here's another. Love is not to be found in someone else, but in ourselves.
Yeah.
We simply awaken it. But in order to do that, we need the other person. Seems a bit contradictory.
It does on the surface, but I think that's the point. It suggests love is within us. It's innate.
Right.
But crucially, other people help us find it, awaken it. It highlights both self-love and the need for connection. It's not either.
Interesting. How about this one? At every moment of our lives, we all have one foot in a fairy tale and the other in the abyss. That's quite an image.
Very vivid, isn't it? It speaks to that duality of life. The fairy tale is hope, dreams.
And the abyss is hardship, despair, the unknown.
Exactly. Life is this constant tightrope walk between optimism and, the harsh realities.
Okay, this one feels very much about agency. I can choose either to be a victim of the world or an adventurer in search of treasure. It's all a question of how I view my life.
Yes. That really hammers home the power of perspective. It shows Maria taking control, realizing her mindset shapes her reality. Victim or adventurer, that choice feels central.
And lastly, the most important experiences a man can have are those that take him to the very limit of his strength and his tenderness.
That highlights growth through challenge, right? Pushing boundaries.
Seems like it.
True development comes from testing ourselves, our resilience, our strength, but also our capacity for empathy, that tenderness. The balance is key.
So pulling back, Coelho is obviously a huge literary figure globally.
Undeniably. Known for stories that are accessible but also tackle deep themes.
And 11 minutes fits that mold, but maybe pushes the envelope a bit?
I think so. It has that spiritual, philosophical core, but it goes into more controversial areas like sexuality, prostitution, quite directly.
Which makes it quite a notable book.
Yeah, that blend of story, philosophy, social commentary. It connects with a lot of people across different cultures.
What was the reaction like when it came out? Critically and among readers?
It was interesting, actually. A bit mixed among critics.
Oh.
Yeah. Many praised the empathy, the tackling of taboos sensitively, the style, the themes definitely resonated with readers worldwide.
But there were criticisms.
Some found the philosophical bits maybe too heavy-handed or worried it romanticized prostitution somehow. Others questioned how realistic Maria's journey felt.
Right.
But despite that critical debate, it became a massive bestseller, translated everywhere, still widely read.
So it clearly struck a chord, regardless of the critics.
Seems like it tapped into something emotionally resonant for a lot of readers, maybe exploring things not often talked about so openly.
Well, 11 minutes definitely offers a lot to think about: love, identity, the choices we make.
Maria's journey, with all its ups and downs, really does invite you to reflect on your own views on these big life questions.
We really hope this deep dive has maybe illuminated some of the key parts of Coelho's novel for you.
And perhaps sparked a bit of curiosity to read it or reread it yourself.
If you found this exploration valuable, please do like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll be back with more literary deep dives.
Thanks for tuning in.